You have to understand this. Boxing's like this game of life. I got beaten by Buster, right?
Is this the end of influencer boxing? Does Jake continue? You know, he's got I guess, looks like a particularly bad injury. Both sides of his jaw broken.
That's why when he fought Anthony Joshua, I scoffed at it. I talked a little bit of because of the lunacy. And I said, someone's going to end up dead. Someone can die.
So here's something that'll stop you in your tracks. Every year, 13 professional boxers actually lose their lives from ring injuries. And that's a reality check nobody wants to think about. After watching Jake Paul get completely demolished by Anthony Joshua, Mike Tyson didn't hold back with his reaction. We're talking about a brutal, straight-up warning here. Tyson flat out told Jake he needs to walk away from boxing immediately, stressing that Jake is literally gambling with his life every time he steps into the ring with these world-class fighters. And Mike isn't being overdramatic. This guy has lived the sport at every possible level. He knows boxing shows zero mercy, especially when you're facing elite competition with no room for mistakes. Tyson genuinely thinks it's just a countdown until Jake suffers devastating damage if he keeps chasing these dangerous high-profile fights. This isn't Tyson trying to tear Jake down. This comes from understanding exactly what happens when skill levels don't match at the top tier.
After Jake's injury, you have this issue now where he's got to recover, and honestly, coming from broken two sides of broken jaw is even worse, because you got to test it out. It's, you know, you're not just chewing food or talking. You know, your jaw has to heal enough to take impact, to spar, to you know, be able to actually box, and not just everyday life's usage of your jaw. Like I said, to just chew and talk. But so, I don't know. That's why I was thinking, like, is this going to be the end of Jake, or because even if he comes back as a boxer, it'll probably could take a year, to be honest. You know, does he focus on his promotional company? I was thinking, you know, the promotional company is probably one thing that I could always ride with. I never had criticism for it. Jake's promotional company, MVP. I think he's doing a lot of good things with his fighters, taking care of them, which is personally what I like. If fighters earn their money, and they should be compensated for it the right way, and a lot of promoters don't do that. But Jake has signed a lot of good fighters and compensates them very well, giving them opportunities and so on. So especially the women, but not just the women. Buddy of mine, Lucas Body's also signed with MVP. He's done well over there. So, you know, he's I do like the promotional company. Will this maybe give Jake a chance to sort of double down on the promotional company, being that he's not going to be fighting, and put even more effort into the promotional company, and I don't know, just you know, make this MVP platform an even bigger deal. You know, I don't know. I don't know what you guys think, but
Jake Paul is dealing with what's being called a devastating jaw injury after that knockout, and the footage circulating is genuinely disturbing to watch. Multiple videos show him clearly unable to open his mouth normally, and you can tell every movement causes real agony. There's one clip he posted where you can actually see that forming words is torture for him, each syllable requiring visible effort, which really drives home how severe this damage truly is. People following this situation are noting that this type of injury perfectly illustrates the enormous dangers Jake faced by challenging a heavyweight champion like Anthony Joshua. We're not looking at some minor bruising or temporary discomfort here. This represents the kind of damage that completely shifts how you view the entire sport. It's proving everything figures like Mike Tyson have been saying about how continuing this trajectory could result in far worse, potentially lifelong consequences.
Boxing is not a game. Fighting is not something you pick up and mess around with, right? If you're a fighter, if you're a boxer, if you're a mixed martial artist, right, you have to take this seriously and you have to respect the game. That's why when he fought Anthony Joshua, I scoffed at it. I talked a little bit of because of the lunacy. And I said, someone's going to end up dead. Someone can die. 10 to 13 boxers die per year. It is not a game. Now, of course, the man wants to make money and he wants to box people and he wants to entertain his fans and thrill audiences. And that's great. And God bless him. Fair play to him. The man is very, very successful. I've never talked about that. I've only talked about a 58-year-old Mike Tyson or fighting retired, semi-retired UFC legends and then talking about them, right? All I've ever said is box someone your own age and size. And then this thing with Anthony Joshua, I was like, this is crazy. Now let's talk about the actual fight for a second. It happened in the 6th round, and it happened in a 22-foot ring. A typical ring is 20 foot. This one was 22 foot because he wanted a bigger room to operate, a bigger space, a bigger ring, somewhere to run away and be on his bike and stay away from Anthony Joshua. Now, I don't blame the guy. I'd have done the same thing, right? Because Anthony Joshua is gigantic and has the kind of power that could potentially do that to you, right? Maybe it's real, maybe it's AI, right? Either way, his face is going to be swollen today. That's a fact, right? The bigger ring gives you more space. Jake Paul did about 5 miles of road work, shot about 25 double leg takedowns because he didn't want to stand there and go toe to toe with him like Francis Ngannou did, because he knows what would have happened, okay? And ultimately, it ended up happening anyway in the 6th round. And yeah, okay, he's going to have the street cred of standing there and say, I went 6 rounds.
Paulie Malignaggi, who definitely understands what recovering from serious boxing injuries involves, provides a detailed breakdown of Jake Paul's current situation. His perspective is really illuminating. He stresses that the extended recovery time this type of damage demands is absolutely no laughing matter. A jaw broken on both sides, which is apparently what we're dealing with here, goes way beyond what most people imagine when they think about broken bones. This isn't comparable to fracturing your arm where you can work around the limitation. Your jaw has to heal completely and perfectly before it can handle the kind of punishment that comes with serious sparring sessions and competitive fights that Jake would need for any return to boxing. Paulie thinks this could realistically keep Jake out for an entire year, possibly longer based on how his healing progresses. This creates real questions about whether he'll keep pursuing actual fighting or focus entirely on his promotional business instead. Speaking of that, Paulie actually gives Jake's MVP promotional company genuine praise, pointing out that it's legitimately supporting fighters properly and paying them fairly, which is honestly rare in a sport known for sketchy promoter behavior. He notes that Jake has signed some truly skilled fighters and is operating the promotion with real professionalism, creating opportunities fighters might not find elsewhere. This promotional work might very well become Jake's main priority during his recovery from this serious injury. Honestly, that could be the wisest decision for everyone.
Anthony Joshua couldn't have done any more. When you get in the ring with somebody that is constantly trying to just survive and run, you can't do anything about it. Our sport is built up of journeymen, like what Jake Paul did. He's trying to survive, he's not trying to engage, and so therefore it's your job to cut him down and catch up to him. I think Anthony Joshua it was basically open to a lot of criticism because this guy didn't come to engage. If he came to engage, then it would have been a completely different story. And I understand the frustration of the general public when they're saying they should knock him out in 1 to 2 rounds. I get that, because Jake Paul is being brilliant at annoying and getting under the skin of everybody, which you really, in our sport, if you can evoke emotion from the fans, you're doing a great job. So what Jake Paul did was got in the ring. I think he realised the task in hand when he stood there in that 22-foot ring. He sees an Adonis of a fighter, former world champion, Anthony Joshua in another corner, and that's when reality hit fiction. Everything he had in his head, everything he thought that he could possibly do, had disappeared, slipped out the ring with the cornermen, slipped out the ring, and he thought, wow, this is for real. And even a little jab that just gently missed him, you could see him thinking, what is this about? So it was a case of survival. And to me, I didn't want Anthony Joshua to knock him out, if I'm honest with you. I thought, you've got to make this kid have a reality check. And that's what he actually did, because Jake Paul himself said, I was shattered. You know, this guy, everything I thought I could do, I couldn't do. Boxing looks so easy on the TV. Boxing looks so, matter of fact, no big deal, until you get punched. And then reality kicks in. And Jake Paul, he has done a brilliant job of promoting himself, promoting this fight, promoting the evoking human emotion. And I think he'll be a great promoter down the line, because, on the undercard, you had Caroline de Barbox on the undercard. You had all these amazing fights on the undercard, all the girls getting the chance to shine.
Michael Bisping, who's dealt with his own devastating injuries in combat sports, emphasizes something crucial that gets forgotten amid all the spectacle and entertainment surrounding these events. The real dangers of combat sports are absolutely legitimate and cannot be dismissed. He makes it completely clear that boxing isn't some game or theatrical performance. Bisping shares this truly shocking statistic that 10 to 13 professional boxers actually die annually from injuries received in competition, and hearing that number really forces you to confront the genuine life-threatening risks we're discussing. We're not dealing with theoretical dangers or worst-case possibilities. These are real deaths that occur with alarming consistency in this sport. Bisping specifically calls out Jake Paul for fighting way above his natural weight division, purely for money, creating these hazardous mismatches that might generate massive publicity and create buzz, but also put him in extreme danger that no paycheck should justify. Bisping emphasizes that boxing absolutely requires professional handling with proper training that takes years to develop, thorough preparation for each individual opponent, and genuine respect for what this sport can do to you. He's cautioning that ignoring these basic principles can result in severe permanent consequences that no amount of followers or pay-per-view sales can revert.
But Jake Paul made a lot of money. Who cares? Money is a tool. Money is good. If you can get it, get it. Hustle. But here's the thing. If someone offered you $100 million, but then if you took the $100 million, you have to pass away, they're going to take your life in 2 weeks. I mean, would you take that? So you get a lot of money and then you only have 2 weeks with the money. Like that, to me, that's stupid. So money is cool, but there's billionaires and millionaires that have lost their life. I'm sure they had terminal illnesses or whatnot. I'm sure they would give up a lot of their wealth or large portions of their wealth for their health. That's why people say health is wealth. So I'm not impressed by money. And it's so funny that you have these MAGA influencers that just lost back-to-back, Jake Paul and Andrew Tate, and their fan bases who pitch this far right and pitch this like red pill philosophies, alpha male philosophies, and like having affirmations and daily tenets and goal setting and being a real man and the difference between man and woman, all these things that these bases have been.
Similarly, Johnny Nelson raises another perspective that deserves consideration. He points out that while Jake Paul has definitely proven himself as an outstanding promoter who understands how to work the system, this promotional achievement came with a significant personal price that can't be ignored. Nelson truly admires Jake's capacity to captivate huge audiences and generate headlines in ways that even experienced fighters find difficult to match. The guy gets modern media and attention in ways that are genuinely impressive from a business angle. But here's where Nelson's viewpoint becomes crucial. He also stresses that risking your actual life for entertainment purposes isn't something that deserves praise or celebration, regardless of how much revenue it creates. Nelson sees Jake's recent defeat to Anthony Joshua as a serious wake-up call, not just for Jake personally, but for every aspiring fighter and influencer watching who might think they can follow the same path. His argument is that promotional talent and the ability to create hype absolutely cannot make up for the very real dangers of facing professional-level opponents when you lack sufficient preparation or experience. Both Nelson and Bisping share this core belief. While Jake dominates at marketing himself and producing events that people want to see, the physical risks he accepted were incredibly serious and shouldn't be downplayed or ignored just because he generated massive profits.
I guess it didn't shock me, but it kind of disappointed me. Whereas I didn't expect Jake Paul to go in there and just recklessly go forward and try to mix it up with Anthony Joshua. That would be like immediate suicide. That would be like running into a jet plane propeller on purpose. But there's a fine line between being defensive minded and using your ability to move and your speed and things like that, than like literally fleeing and just running around the ring like you're in a cartoon. And that's what he basically resorted to for the first 4 rounds. I mean, I guess it was effective because he stayed upright, other than when he was flopping down on the canvas. But no, nothing really surprised me. Jake got the knockout that everybody expected, and it was a pretty impressive knockout when he finally got it. It just took him longer than it probably should have to get there.
Why do you think it took him so long? It seemed at times that he wasn't throwing his right hand as much. Was it just the fact, like you said, Jake was on the back foot, it was difficult to pin him down, or do you think Joshua should have and could have finished this way earlier?
I mean, he probably could have finished it a little bit earlier. I mean, I'm willing to cut him a little bit of slack because we look at it from the standpoint of, okay, he's a physically much more imposing figure, a much better fighter, a much heavier puncher, a much more experienced fighter. This is an Olympic gold medal winner, is a 2-time unified heavyweight champion going up against what is basically still a novice professional in Jake Paul, who, by the way, is fighting generally in the 200-pound weight class, and Anthony Joshua was a chiseled 250 in most of his fights or thereabouts. So from that standpoint, he had all the physical advantages as well as all the experience and skills advantages. So why couldn't he do it earlier? Because it's hard to catch up with a guy when he's just going to run around and never try to even take.
Experts everywhere have been stressing that Jake Paul's broken jaw represents far more than just a temporary obstacle. This is a serious and potentially career-changing injury that could transform everything about his boxing future. The damage, which apparently includes fractures on both sides of his jaw, demands extensive and cautious healing before he can safely return to sparring, absorb punches without risking additional damage, or compete again at any level. Specialists are emphasizing that injuries like this aren't just about basic functions like speaking clearly or eating normal food. Although those are certainly impacted, what really counts is that these breaks compromise his basic ability to handle the kind of impacts that happen regularly in training and actual competition. Recovery could realistically require many months, and we're discussing complete recovery here, not just reaching a point where it feels manageable. Coming back too soon, whether due to financial pressure, pride, or simple impatience, could risk lasting damage that impacts him permanently. Experts are also cautioning pretty directly that continued high-risk battles against elite opponents, particularly at weight divisions where Jake doesn't naturally fit, could result in serious long-term effects, not just for his boxing career, but for his overall health and life quality moving forward.
About it, you know, on the flip side to it, everyone's laughing at Jake Paul when Jake Paul's laughing at everybody else. You know, everyone's making fun of him. He's laughing at us, not we're laughing at him. You know, he's laughed himself to the bank. Even before that fight, you know, he's an unbelievable businessman, which is exactly what he is. To do what he's done, to drag Mike Tyson into the ring, to drag Anthony Joshua into the ring, get Netflix, to do what he's done with women's boxing. Laugh at him all you want, mate. He's absolutely, you know, like I say, I'm going to use the word the businessman. He's unbelievable at what he's doing. As a fighter, as a boxer, as a professional boxer, he's poor. And I mean this with the greatest respect. Like, you know, he's come off the couch watching YouTube, doing YouTube and influencing people to get Anthony Joshua in the ring. Should Jake Paul and Anthony Joshua ever be in the ring together? No, should be fucked. But the business side to it, they fucking walked away with millions. The fight was poor. Jake was just in there to survive. Yeah, there's loads. We can keep going on and on about it. Was it a success? Probably. The boat walked away with millions. But for Jake to get Joshua in the ring there, you can say all you want, but I think personally, if that fight fell on Tyson Fury's lap first, he would have took it. You know, which heavyweight's going to say, yeah, it is. Just let's say, an example, 50 million to fight Jake Paul. You know, they're going to say no. I don't think one heavyweight in world boxing would have said no, barring Alexander Usyk.
No, definitely as well. Final one on this as well. Do you side with the fact that kind of the first meaningful shot that Joshua threw the fight was?
Dan Raphael provides this really colorful analysis of Jake Paul's tactics in the opening rounds, and his description is both amusing and troubling simultaneously. He describes Jake's approach as dangerously reckless, likening it to literally charging into a jet engine, which illustrates just how foolish it appeared to knowledgeable observers. Raphael explains there's a significant difference between intelligent defensive movement, which represents legitimate boxing strategy, and basically fleeing in terror, which is what Jake did for the first 4 rounds. While this survival-focused method kept him standing temporarily and avoided an even quicker knockout, Raphael observes that it looked almost comical in execution, like watching someone try to survive rather than actually compete. The movement wasn't tactical defense, it was complete avoidance and escape. Raphael mentions that the eventual knockout was not only anticipated by anyone with boxing knowledge, but it was actually skillfully executed when it finally happened. However, he also observes that realistically, it took longer than expected, primarily because Jake invested so much energy just trying to avoid any engagement whatsoever instead of actually boxing.
He does not. No more than I would have given him respect before for the other things that he's done, for the just that he would have from me for being just a normal human being. Because as I said in other videos about the fight between Jake Paul and Anthony Joshua, I don't think that Jake Paul came in there as a boxer. I think Jake Paul came in there as a stunt man, and he was impersonating a boxer. He ran around the ring away from Anthony Joshua. Anytime Anthony Joshua tried in the beginning rounds, started engaging a little bit, Jake Paul ran up to him, jumped down on his knees, grabbed down on his leg. Might have been, I don't know, 10, 11 times in the course of the 6 rounds that he wound up on his knees.
Jim Smith provides what could be the most direct and thorough evaluation of Jake Paul's knockout defeat to Anthony Joshua, and he doesn't soften his description of why the fight disappointed from a pure boxing perspective. Smith emphasizes that Jake's actual ring performance fell far short of what you'd expect from someone claiming to be a professional boxer. Rather than engaging and competing, he mainly focused on surviving instead of fighting, demonstrating a clear absence of proper technique and strategic knowledge. However, and this becomes interesting, Smith contrasts this boxing deficiency with Jake's absolutely undeniable business expertise. He gives recognition where deserved. He acknowledges Jake's remarkable ability to attract massive names like Mike Tyson and Anthony Joshua into competition, secure these enormous Netflix contracts that expose boxing to huge audiences, and create significant attention for women's boxing, which has traditionally struggled for mainstream recognition. From a promotional standpoint, Smith acknowledges that Jake is essentially unrivaled, with an ability to transform what might have been just another boxing event into a multi-million-dollar spectacle that captures worldwide attention. However, Smith ensures he points out that despite all this financial achievement and promotional brilliance, the actual fight failed to provide excitement or legitimacy for serious boxing fans who recognize genuine competitive boxing. Jake's ring approach clearly demonstrates that while he excels as an influencer and promoter with elite skills in those areas, his capabilities as an actual professional boxer remain quite limited, depending far more on survival methods and trying to go the distance than on competitive performance or real boxing ability.
We had the Mike Tyson fight. This year, we had the Anthony Joshua fight, but things went very, very differently for Jake Paul. His jaw is broken in 2 different places. He is on an all-liquid diet, and things didn't go quite as well for him as he thought they would, but he did make $92 million. The question becomes, is this the end of the Jake Paul era? Did watching him get beat that badly ruin future fights, or is this exactly what was supposed to happen, and there will still be interest if Jake Paul fights a random 45-year-old that never boxed in his life?
That wraps up today's discussion. Keep watching for next time. Jake Paul apparently sustained what some experts are describing as a potentially career-ending injury following his bout with Anthony Joshua, and numerous observers are claiming his performance resembled stunt work more than legitimate sport. These observers and experts suggest that Jake entered competition not as a serious competitive boxer prepared to engage, but more like a stuntman mimicking boxing movements without truly committing to actual fighting. Throughout the early rounds, Jake constantly fled from exchanges, dropped to avoid damage, and desperately attempted to grab and hold Joshua just to survive. He reportedly did this approximately 10 to 11 times across just 6 rounds. Despite managing to last all 6 rounds before the knockout, which some might consider an accomplishment, critics contend that his methods were truly dangerous and completely unprofessional, placing his health in serious and avoidable jeopardy. The constant attempts to clinch, hold, and avoid real engagement demonstrate a basic lack of boxing fundamentals and strategic comprehension. Experts have cautioned quite strongly that continuing to fight this way, particularly regularly against elite-level fighters at the absolute peak of the sport could result in catastrophic injuries far beyond a broken jaw. While some might commend his persistence in lasting as long as he did, those in the boxing community stress that Jake's approach reveals the serious dangers of combining entertainment-focused spectacle with professional-level combat sports, highlighting the absolute necessity for respect, proper training, and caution in a sport that can be fatal. Angelo and Josh analyzed the Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua fight thoroughly, asking the question everyone wants answered: does this decisive defeat actually end Jake Paul's boxing career, or is this simply a temporary pause? They observed that last year Jake faced Mike Tyson in this huge media spectacle, but this year's battle against Joshua unfolded very differently in almost every aspect. Jake sustained a jaw broken in 2 locations, which ranks among the most serious facial injuries possible in boxing, and he's reportedly limited to a liquid diet while healing occurred. Interestingly though, he still reportedly earned $92 million from the fight, representing an absolutely incredible payday. Angelo and Josh discuss whether such a decisive and devastating defeat actually hurts his chances for future major fights, or if the interest and attention will persist regardless, even with less experienced or credible future opponent. They emphasize Anthony Joshua's completely perfect ring performance, noting that he executed a flawless tactical fight, never took unnecessary chances, and never left himself exposed at any moment. Ultimately, the entire discussion surrounding this fight moves away from spectacle and entertainment value toward the actual consequences that result from these kinds of mismatches. The jaw broken in multiple places, the serious warnings from boxing legends with decades in the sport, and the virtually unanimous concern from analysts and commentators all indicate the same basic reality that cannot be dismissed. Boxing isn't a game or entertainment media, it's a truly dangerous combat sport, and elite-level mismatches like this produce real permanent damage that affects you long after the cameras stop recording. While Jake Paul has definitely proven himself an outstanding promoter and genuinely powerful force in modern fight marketing, this defeat to Anthony Joshua served as a brutal and undeniable reminder that success outside the ring, whether social media following, business deals, or promotional abilities, provides zero protection inside the ring when facing world-class competition. Whether this fight actually ends Jake's boxing ambitions as a competitor, or simply forces a pause due to his injury severity and recovery requirements, the message from the boxing community, from legends to analysts to fellow fighters, is completely clear and unanimous. Continuing this path of fighting elite opponents while competing outside your natural weight division brings risks that money, attention, promotional success, and confidence absolutely cannot reduce or shield you from.